Oh, why hello there. I didn't see you. You must be the new person that they sent me. Well, I've been told that apparently you wanted to know how to make good stitches. You're in luck actually, because you came to the right place. For you see, stitching is not just the concept of making your character look good. It's an art. It's something that represents yourself. In fact, I was actually just heading to Professor Drake's house in order to just learn a little bit more on my myth magic. However, now that you're here, we can now present to you the new episode of Stitch. How's it going, guys, and welcome back to yet another episode of Stitch Review, the video where I review your stitches through your submissions through Twitter. And if you want to join in for probably a part 3, definitely go to the description. There'll be a link to my Twitter so you can follow me there and just join in whenever I do more community stuff for Wiz, because I'll be doing that pretty often. In terms of this stitch, I pretty much was inspired by Persona 5, and the specific character I was inspired by was Goro Akechi. And if there's one thing you need to know about Goro Akechi, is that he likes pancakes. So his Phantom Thief outfit is known, well, his name is actually known as Crow because his Phantom Thief outfit looks like a crow, thanks to like the beak that he wears as a mask. And the thing that does not match at all is definitely like the hat. So I guess this to me looks more like a Gulcher, so I guess you can call me Gulcher. And the robe and the boots, for those who are interested, you can actually farm for them in the Buckingham Palace at Marleybone. I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but you could definitely look it up. It's one of the newer ones in Marleybone, and you could get both the robe and the boots there. Obviously the hat's the duelist hat, and we got the duelist wand here. And honestly, it doesn't necessarily match 100% because when I try doing red, it looks more like burgundy, but it does match pretty well with my pet, so I'm very proud of that. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my stitch. So without further ado, let's get started with today's video. Before I actually get started on this video, I just want to let you guys know that the room actually is being fixed at the moment. We just removed the carpet floor. We're basically putting wooden floor now, and recently we just painted the room a little bit of a lighter gray. I'm not sure if you can tell, but it's a lighter gray. It looks really nice. But the reason why the room probably sounds echoey, or as to why the audio sounds different for this video, it's because I'm recording this at the time the room is basically being made. Hopefully we get it fixed by this week, but at the end of the day, we never know. But as always, enjoy the video. Alright, so the first stitch submission for today's stitch review video is actually going to be from my boy John. Now, I'm just going to show you all the stitches, but overall I'm just giving this a basic out of 10. Very common stitch all around, so there's not really much I have to say about it. However, the one thing I do want to point out is I want to see more of that wolf right there. That's the one thing I really want to see, because that one just looks really interesting, and I wanted to see what the full setup may have looked like. That would have been a little bit more interesting for the video. That will also be a little bit more appealing because of how unique it really looks. But overall, pretty much giving this a basic out of 10. Sorry, John, it had to be done. Now, the next submission actually comes from Killzor Plays, and these are two different stitches that he told me are actually based on Pirate 101. Now, I'm not necessarily sure what the first one is supposed to be, but it does look really solid, and it seems like if it's like a pirate that came from maybe Zafaria, if anything. So overall, I mean, this is very solid, and I'm giving this a Captain Tessa Rose out of 10. The second one, if you guys are really huge fans of Pirate, and I haven't necessarily got to the point where I get to meet this man, but I did hear stories about him. This is actually the leader of the Armada, Kane. And one of the things I'm a sucker for when it comes to stitches is inspiration stitches. These are stitches where people are inspired by either by a video game, by, you know, legends, or even by just WIZARD101 itself. These are just stitches that I absolutely love because it definitely shows how passionate they are about these things. And this definitely does show. Now, the thing I absolutely love about the Stitch's style is definitely how the black color scheme just really makes the gold pop a lot more. So I'm giving this a Kane out of 10. So the next stitch actually comes from the WIZARD brand, and this actually is not my favorite stitch. The only reason why I'm talking about it a little bit more in detail is to help my boy out here, to make it just a little bit more solid. Now, one of the things I don't like about it is how it's just all over the place. Now, one thing I will definitely recommend is, first of all, the gauntlets. One thing I do have to give credit for is that the gauntlets are definitely not easy to make look good because the stance is just super silly all the time. But in my personal opinion, if you were to have the storm gauntlets from the decathlon, then this will make the stitch just look a slight bit better. Also, when it comes to the boots, you know what I say about, you know, the different textures you use in gear. Most of the time, it doesn't really work out. Sometimes it does work out, most of the time it doesn't. And this is actually one of the cases where it doesn't work out. So in my recommendation, I will also probably try to get some armor boots, if anything, to just make the textures fit a little bit better as well. Now, when it comes with the hat, I think the hat is fine. I feel like the biggest problem for me is definitely has to be the gauntlets and the boots. I think if you change at least those things, then it will be a pretty solid stitch. So I'm giving this a Decathamoon Frost out of 10. Next, we have the one and only himself, Lord FIRESTAFF, as he is actually sending us his own classic professional stitch here. And I like to call this basically the FIRESTAFF special. This is something that he should own. This is something he should copyright. If anybody uses this stitch, gotta pay up, boy. And overall, I was really thinking critically about this one as much as I can. I wanted to see if there was anything that could probably be fixed about this stitch overall. Maybe something that, you know, I would like to point out that, you know, could just be a little bit of an issue, but I couldn't really think of anything. This is actually a very nice stitch overall. One of the main things that I was really thinking that probably would have been the thing that looks off is the boots, but the more I kept thinking about it, the more I realized that it actually looks pretty solid. The reason why is because FIRESTAFF actually knew that he needed to make the textures fit pretty well. We have the robe, a combination of leather, and maybe just a little bit of a combination of metal around there. And we also have the boots that seems to be a combination of both type of materials of leather and metal. And it overall just looks really well texture-wise. But what about the color scheme? You know, does the color scheme match very well? Well, personally, at first thought, I thought that it really didn't really match well. But then I thought about it for a little bit more, and you see how the belt and the boots themselves seem to match very well thanks to, you know, a little bit of that little golden with the more of a darker yellow from the boots. And then we also have, like, the dark blue go very well with the black of, you know, the belt and even the arm parts. So overall, this is actually a very solid stitch. So I'm giving this a FIRESTAFF special out of 10. Now the next one we have is from Silver, and I'm not really going to say much about this one other than, as much as I am not a fan of insignia based gear as, you know, official stitches most of the time, you can't really go wrong with insignia gear at all. Like, it's overall, insignia gear is always solid most of the time, and that hairstyle isn't really as common. But again, since it's mostly just insignia gear style stitch, I'm giving this a basic out of 10. Sorry, Silver, I gotta do it to you. Squidney is actually the next submission, and this definitely has to be one of my most favorite stitches out of all, because croc stitches are definitely not something that you see very often, especially ones that are actually very good. And this one is definitely one that looks very good. Now, this one in particular is very nice, mainly because of how well, you know, she decided to make this stitch a little bit more in the red color scheme. the thing about red is that it's very appealing to most people, and this definitely was super appealing. It's pretty much kind of like Alyssa's Stitch from the prior Stitch review video, and I liked it how I called her, I believe I called her like the Stormcaller or so, something like that. And with this one, you know, it's like the exact opposite of the Storm. It's basically fire. And the thing about the color scheme, like I said before, is that the white just makes the red pop a lot more. And thanks to the crystal's vibrant look, it just gives the Stitch overall such a really nice, vibrant, you know, fiery look. And I absolutely love this one. So I'm giving this one the Crimson Collar out of 10. So the next few submissions are actually from Jack Nightingale. And overall, these are very solid stitches. Like, I actually really love these stitches. The first one, I'm going to give it Commander Nightingale out of 10. This one is pretty much what I like to know as the Headless Hunter. Now, for those who know me very well, you know I'm a sucker for very classic looking stitches. And this one has a very nice twist of, thanks to the pumpkin head and also the bow and arrow. This seems like a person who is ready to defeat their enemies with one single shot. Definitely something that I will be afraid of going against in the arena. So I'm giving this a Headless Hunter out of 10. This one is very solid, giving this one the MOOSHU Sorcerer out of 10. In a world where magic is limited, Mad Jack is ready to take on any enemy who dares come for his limited magic. This one is actually one of my favorites from him, and it gives lots of, you know, Mad Max vibes, and overall it's just very solid. Like, there's not really much I can say about this other than it's just a very solid overall stitch. Like, everything just seems to flow along very well. We got a little bit of a leather metal type of texture all around, and honestly there's not much I can say other than it's very solid. So I'm giving this a Mad Jack out of 10. While her loyal subjects are ready to defend her at any moment, she is definitely more than capable of taking care of herself thanks to her use and mastery of ice magic. Now, this stitch actually comes from Hannah Frost Dreamer, and obviously I have to say this is a very good one. This one gives me lots of the Mirage vibes, which I want to see more Mirage type of stitches more in the arena, or just anywhere. Oopsie, I just dropped my phone. But this one's very good, very solid. It's pretty much the same thing I like to say with Squidney Stitch, where she uses white to make the red parts of the color scheme pop a lot more. It's the same thing with Hannah's, making the white with the blue color scheme pop a lot more. Overall, this stitch is very solid, so I'm giving it the Queen of Frost out of 10. Now, these next two actually come from Killzor Plays, and we're gonna start with the last one actually. Now, pretty much very solid stitch. I'm gonna be giving this an Abigail Lincoln, but a little bit of a darker side out of 10. And this next one is also pretty solid. It's very unique, so I'm giving this the Wolf Among Us out of 10. Now, this is actually the stitch that I wanted to talk about more personally, since he is none other than Dr. Timestein, the most genius person within all of the Spiral that was capable to solve the majority of the Spiral's mysteries. He is also the person who's very willing to obtain new knowledge in order to solve the many more possibilities of mysteries that the Spiral withholds. This stitch honestly is one of my personal favorites from Killzor, and the reason why is because I don't really see much people who really try to make the Snowdrifter gear match very well, and he definitely does match the Snowdrifter's gear very well. This definitely has to be one of my favorites, mainly because I'm a sucker for the magnet wand. This is one of the wands that I absolutely just love to look at every time. And obviously, we know that this man is a genius and has big brain. So, overall, I'm giving this stitch the Dr. Timestein out of 10. Now, these next three submissions actually come from Glidewell, and there are two that I personally do want to talk about the most. The first one we have is this one, which I'll be giving this one the King of Dragonspyre out of 10. The next one we have is this one, which I'm giving this the SPECTRE Tamer out of 10. And the third one, which I personally do want to talk about, is this one. This one is of a wizard who was sent to the world of Aquila to learn the customs of the gladiators. After 11 years, he has finally become the full-fledged gladiator. And one of the things I do love about Glidewell's submissions is that he definitely wanted to go with the theme depending on the background picture. And this is definitely something that I do appreciate a lot. So thank you, Glidewell, for giving me a little bit more of a help as to what your theme was trying to go for. Now, one of the things I do love about this stitch is that this is a combination of the Omen gear, robe, and boots with the Aquila bundle wand, which gives off a very nice gladiator vibe within it. And not only is the color scheme very good, but the theme also fits very well. So I'm giving this the Gladiator out of 10. Now this one is of an assassin who has been well known to kill anyone for the right price. So if you ever see him in the arena, I advise you to run away as fast as possible. Now, this stitch I absolutely do love because the hat that comes from like a Halloween pack, I think it's the Nightmare pack if I'm remembering correctly, is definitely not one that I see very often, and for certainly not one that I see that's done fairly well. And this one actually does it very well. You know, obviously we got the Umber Blade, everything overall just seems to match with the stitch, even the pet matches with the stitch. And that is something that I could definitely appreciate it. Very solid stitch, so I'm giving this the Shadow Agent out of 10. Now we actually have the other submission from Squidney, and this actually gives me two different vibes overall. Now here's actually one of the looks of the stitches. Here's actually a better one, which actually shows the full body of the stitch. And this one I like to call Santa's Little Robin Hood, because this gives me a combination of both Santa's Little Elves vibe, and it also gives me a Robin Hood vibe thanks to the hat. Color scheme fits very well all together. You know, the boots is the major giveaway that it does make it feel like if it's some type of like elf type of stitch, but the hat really just gives that Robin Hood type of vibe overall. And overall, this is just a really fun stitch to look at, so I'm giving this Santa's Little Robin Hood out of 10. Now this next stitch actually comes Frost himself. Let us see if he redeems himself from the last time he has sent us the stitch. The first stitch we would like to call of a mighty king who has an army that is willing to take on any enemy. This is known as the King of Frost. Now, I really do like the stitch because it gives a really nice Dragonspyre vibe, but with a twist because of the wand, which not only does it fit well with the color scheme, but it also gives the vibe that he is actually an excellent charmer. So definitely something that I really do appreciate overall. The gold with the dark blue just matches very well, and especially with the crown because it's just a very nice vibrant gold to it. Overall, I'm giving this the King of Frost out of 10. Now the next one is one that I think is pretty solid, but I'm not sure how exactly I was to think about this. I really do like the robe, but I don't know, it's like maybe there could have been like something a little bit better when it comes towards the hat and the boots, but at the same time it doesn't look bad either. Like, it's fairly solid. So I'm going to give this the Charmer of the South Pole out of 10. Now for the final two stitches, we actually did obtain some from Delaney. She has actually sent us 3 stitches overall. Now the first one, I have to say that it's not necessarily my favorite. I'm not a fan of like the rainbow color hair. I just never really been a fan of rainbow color hair, nor the face tats usually. So I'm just giving this a Miss Takashi, if she was a life wizard, out of 10. This one is actually pretty cool. You know, I really do like the boots a lot. So I'm giving this Captain Dark Dust out of 10. If you want to know the origin of her story, she actually comes from the Haunted Circus, but eventually decides to take her skills to learn some storm magic. Unfortunately, there's actually not much information about her, since those who actually did try to get her full name were met by swift defeat. But the one thing that these people do tend to remember is the color of violet. Now this one is actually very good. It's actually one of my most favorite stitches from all the submissions, and the thing I really like about this one is that it's actually an insignia combination stitch, but not the combination stitch that you see pretty often for some people. This is actually a little bit different. We got the carnival hat, we got the same boost that we got from the Captain Darkness stitch, and then we just go with that insignia row. But the thing that is special about this one is that the great thing about insignia combination gear is that the insignia gear pops a lot more compared to when you just decide to go for an all insignia base type gear or a majority insignia base type gear. This one is just very solid overall, so I'm going to give this one a violet out of 10. Now this next stitch actually comes from Veronica, and the first one we're going to be going over is this one. Now this one is actually a very solid stitch, you know, gives that MOOSHU vibe very well, and I'm just going to give this Samurai Kitty out of 10. Now for the next one, we also have a pretty similar getup, but with the little bear hat. And this is super cute. I mean, there's nothing much else I can actually say other than it's actually a really cute looking stitch. You know, one of the things I do like about this one is basically that bear hat. That bear hat just makes the stitch look very cute. This is what I like to call the Veronica special type of stitch, which I'll show you a couple pictures of the stitch overall. Again, fairly solid, and the bear just gives it a nice cute touch. So I'm going to give this the kitty special out of 10. And that's actually going to be it for today's stitch review video. I hope you guys really did enjoy, and I'm really hoping this video actually isn't that long. I tried making it as short as possible, and I also tried to, you know, review everyone's stitches, because I didn't really feel like leaving people out. Like, you know, I would just feel bad if I just leave people out for the stitch review. But overall, you know, this was a very fun video to make, and hopefully you did enjoy as well. And hopefully you do really like my new myth stitch. That's going to be the new myth stitch you're going to be seeing in the arena very often. So if you do see me, say hi. You know, I'll say hi back. You know, we do that thing. But other than that, hopefully that you did enjoy. As always, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and always remember to stay frenzy. Peace.
Getting stronger every day.